Sleeve Chief is having their 2-week Black Friday sale starting November 24th and going until December 8th. Everything in their store will be 20 to 60% off. There will additionally be restocks and new product drops, including their recently announced Flame Brothers collection. So make sure to check it out and use my coupon code The Eggman for an additional 5% off on top of everything. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and we've got not one but two different top 16 finals to go over that happened this past weekend. We had the TAC Games Oceania finals as well as Play Land Americans Land American finals, and honestly I think this format is super good, arguably the best format that we've had from this card game. There's a lot of different leaders that are viable, and even within these leaders there are different builds and deck lists, and they're just really exciting to see all the success that people can have with their own personal builds and whatnot. So honestly, I'm really excited to go over these deck lists right now. And if you guys are enjoying the Fusion World content, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. We've been making a lot more Fusion World content and have at least one weekly stream for the last couple weeks, and I intend to keep that up in the next couple weeks too. So honestly, I'm really enjoying this game, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the content too. So also, if you guys want any deck lists for this event or many others, you can make sure to check out my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description, where all the deck lists that we're going over today and all the ones we're not going over as well are going to be there, so you can make sure to check that out. But starting off with the TAC Games Oceania finals, we did have 2 days, 8 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 16 cut, best of 3. There was a stream for day 1 and day 2, though day 1 started about, I think, into round 5 or 6, so a little bit late, but it did get top 16 round 1 into there, and then it had 2 of the top 8 matches, top 4, and then finals there, so you can make sure to check that out. And of them, we did have 7 copies of the FB03 Son Goku, with one of them winning the event, 4 copies of the FB04 Baby Vegeta. We also had 1 Beerus, 1 Zamasu Fuse, 1 Daima Goku, 1 Aandroidd 17, and a Son Goku GT. And then over here for the Land American event 1, it was 308 players, 9 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 16 best of 3. They were also streamed. You can find that linked here on the page. Also, shouts to Nicholas Diaz for helping me get these deck lists. I would not be able to make this part of the video without them, but there were 5 copies of Baby Vegeta, 3 copies of FB03 Son Goku, which also ended up winning this event, 2 Aandroidd 17s, 2 Son Goku GTs, 1 Beerus, 1 Majin Buu Evil, 1 Jiren, as well as 1 copy of the Daima Goku. So as you can see, there's a good amount of leaders that are viable right now. Between these two events, we did have 9 different leaders top, which is pretty interesting, and I think that's really cool for, again, this meta. And some that are kind of, known. I think Vegeta Baby, Baby Vegeta is the leader that most people are saying is the strongest in the game right now. But again, we did have the FB03 Son Goku, which wasn't immediately on my radar when we went into this meta, but it took 7 whole spots of the Oceania event, which is quite a bit. It's a lot for this card game. Obviously, nothing like FB02 Son Goku, but I do think that this is quite peculiar for a leader that, again, was not on my radar. And I think a lot of other people would say if they're looking at blue for this game right now, they're mostly on the Vegeta leader as the safe pick. But this has been getting a lot of value. You're going to go over both winning lists, but I think that's really interesting. But in general, I think every color has some viability. For this one, I was a little bit surprised Majin Buu didn't top for this event. I have been enjoying playing that a lot, and we're going to go over the list that did top the Latin American event at the end, but also the list that they also topped with was really unique, and I hadn't seen the build before either, which is really cool. So I'm going to stop stalling. We're going to go into the deck list, starting off with our first place list. So we've got Charlie's first place list as well as Sebastian's first place list in their respective finals too. So and you can see, like, even though that these are both the same leader that topped, they do have some slightly different engines, which I think is really cool. So for Charlie, I would say this is more of the standard build, or at least the straightforward build, right? We run as much of the Saiyan City cards as we can. We do have the new 1-drop Videl, which I think this is probably the biggest reason this deck is seeing a resurgence, or even like a viability. I don't think it was seeing a lot of play outside of the first couple weeks of FB03, but activate main, return this character to its owner's hand, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a reveal card is Saiyan City, in its special traits, play up to 1 Videl with a cost of 2 from your hand, and then you can't play Videl for the turn. But this is really great. You do have to kind of do it blind at the beginning of the game, But worst case, you just don't use that energy, which doesn't really matter that much. But best case, you get to play out a 2-drop 20k, and you're able to get a lot of value from this. So this isn't the first time we've just seen like a support card come out, a couple, a set after a leader comes out that just changes the viability of a leader by itself, as we've seen with 17-18 for the Aandroidd 17 deck. But yeah, it's quite good. It's quite good to be able to do that. So we are running 38 copies of Satan City cards, so we have like an 80% chance almost that the top card of our deck is going to be Satan City, and then we get to play a 2-drop for free. So that's really great. Later in the game, when we can make it more specific, or we can make it known with our leader effect to what we put on top, that does help us a lot, and it does make us just get that one energy play. That means that we have less to do. And again, this card returns to our hand, right? It doesn't even like get discarded, bottom decked, or anything. We still get to use it, which is really nice. So we don't even have to like lose card advantage. We just have to make sure that we set the top card of our deck, or get lucky enough that the top card of our deck is already there. So again, we can use that with our leader ability, or also with the You Prefer Girls with Short Hair, which we can make this cost 1 less later if we're sharpener. But of course, that obviously means that we know the top card of our deck. So but I think this is pretty standard for a lot of builds, and it's just very strong. Top end is just having a copy of Vegeta Daima, which I think the card draw does make a lot of sense. The 3 or less is worse than like the star deck 2 Vegeta, but being able to get the card draw is, I think, better in most situations. And then also we do have the Vegito here, which is the new secret rare form from this set. So being able to use this to just be a lot pressure heavy. The thing, it bounces anything back to hand, which is really strong, and it doesn't have any counters. Sometimes I think like the 5-drop Vegito might be better in some situations, but this is a really good game ender, and I think there's honestly some good spots for you to be actually able to get down to 0 cards in your deck and use this effect to get a 50k attack twice, or at least once, which is pretty strong. So again, this is Charlie's version of it here, and then we also do have Sebastian's build. So the big differences from this one is that we're using quite a bit, a few more Saiyan City cards, and mostly because we are using the Great Saiyaman 2 engine. So this is an FB04 card. This is also new for this set, but on play, if you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, you get to play up to 1 skillless Great Saiyaman from your drop, which playing from drop is actually really great. So, and maybe like the better way to think about this, right, is that people see this card at first and say, oh, it's a 4-drop 20k that plays a 3-drop 30k. I guess that's fine. But like, think of it the other way. If this was like a 4-drop 30k, right, that played the other way around, right, like it's just the fact that you get to play it from your drop, which is so really good for this card. Even if it's a skillless card, right, it just means you have to play this card, which you get some 10k advantage from this being able to use as a combo, and then later you get to bring it back, which is just really great value for you, I think. So I do like the idea of it, and I do have to test it a little bit more. Other than that, we just kind of have more of the general stuff too. We're not running the double strike Vegeta. We are playing 1 more copy of the Vegito, and then also we are playing a single copy of the Zeno. So this card we do have to be a little bit careful for in this deck, because it does bottom deck our own Orange City High School if we are playing it in that way. But in general, we're not playing as many in this one. We're only playing 3 copies in this build. And I think this deck is just super duper strong in a lot of ways. So I'm really looking forward to testing it myself. I played a lot of Vegeta in FB03 meta. It was one of my favorite decks in that meta. And I felt like the FB03 Goku just couldn't really be as consistent. But now that we have these new tools and we have these new extension targets, I think the deck can be really strong in its own way. So big congratulations to both Charlie and Sebastian. They're going to be at the finals for this game, and looking forward to seeing what they bring there. But again, big congratulations to both these players. Next up, we've got our second place for our Oceania. For this is Nestor from our Latin American event. For Oceania, we did have a finals of FB03 for both decks. So we're not going to go over Joseph's, but again, congratulations to their second place finish there. But for our runner-up for Latin America, we do have Nestor's version of the Baby Vegeta. And again, this is probably the most played deck in this format right now. There's just a lot of advantage you're able to get with it. It has a really unique awakened effect, being able to combo with your rest mode, brainwash, and machine mutant cards, which kind of break the game a little bit, right? Like breaks it just a smidge, right? being able to attack with a body such as like this Trunks GT and being able to use it to combo with it, and then not only get the 5k from just comboing with this after you attacked with a 20k body, but then also being able to add like two 10ks, or if there's some combo pieces you're missing. This is just a really, really strong card that's able to add a lot of consistency and card advantage in a deck that I don't think gets it otherwise. So I think that's very strong. Additionally, this build is more of, I'd say, like the mid-range control version of it, where we do just try to get as much value as we can and then just kind of pressure towards the late game. There is more of like an aggressive build with like the Rildo package, which there are people who were able to top with those builds, but we're just going to be talking about this one for it. So part of this build too is we do get a lot of value from the Son Goku GT. The fact that this card is the 30k, that helps us with our energy marker consumption, and also with a card draw. It also means like your opponent just has to remove this card if they can, but also if we do have this Trunks GT out, we get a whole lot of advantage from this existing too. So this is another new card from us. If you have an energy marker and your non-Trunks GT battle cards cannot be removed from the battle area by your opponent's skills. So that also being like a self-awakener, you can play this on like your 2 energy play, or let's say you have 2 energy and a marker, you can play this out, and if your opponent doesn't remove it, that means you can play your Son Goku GT with no real worry about it getting removed against anything that's not red, since they have all that. You can still like minus the power of this and then attack like a 20k into this being a 10k kind of thing, but the amount of advantage you're able to get from being able to save that's really good. So the other way is we can use like grade 8 baby, though it's a little bit hard to play this and keep the marker unless you're at like 4 energy and the marker. But the fact that you can have some sort of self-protection on your 4-drop that also gets removal of other things can be really strong in its own way too. So I think like that offers like a lot of support in general. Like the amount of value that Super Baby 2 gets to get from just playing like the cards you want to play anyways is really strong, and then you are able to capitalize on some of these later game cards, even though like we cap out on like the 5 energy. But I think that's strong. And the last thing I would say is that we are running the Son Gohan GT. This is able to let us just get like a free card draw, which is really nice, but also being able to play an extra for free, which can mean like a 10 times Kamehameha if you just need to get like a 2k 2 cost instead of like using the marker effect, or using the resisting destiny, which you're able to use this to get an extra draw as well as like a 15k. So you can combo with the Son Gohan. You have a card in your combo area, your next extra cost 0, which means that you can play this for free and you get like another card draw. So for 2 cards you are able to get like a 25k. You get to cycle 2 cards, and all it costs is this being comboed on the board, which is not too terribly bad, especially if you can like attack with it first, get a little bit of value, and then get the card draw there. So in general, I think this deck has like a lot of ways to generate a lot of value, a lot of pressure, and it's definitely like a reason why this deck is really popular in a lot of ways. But I also don't think it's unbeatable or tier 0. It might be, again, the most popular deck in the game right now, but I'm not convinced it's the best deck in the game right now. Regardless, this is Nestor's build. Congratulations for their 2nd place finish for the Latin American finals. Next up, we're going to go for the 3rd place list for the Oceania finals. We have Yoon Yue's version of the Zamasu Fused, and this is definitely a leader that I wanted to spend some time looking back into. There's a lot of cards that came of the starter deck as well as FB04 that does, I think, help Zamasu Fused exist as a leader, and it's really cool to see a 3rd place finish with it here. So the main cards I would say are, one, the additions of Marin. This has just been kind of like a nebulously good card for, I think, a lot of blue decks. It's a 1-drop Earthling, so that's already pretty good, but the fact that we are able to look at the top card before we draw in a deck like Zamasu that gets so much like non-counter cards, right? Like look at the amount of extras that we're running between the Gallic Gun, the Final Hope Slash, a couple new cards. Like there's so many times where you could get that card draw and then you just don't get any addition to your combo power either. So I think that helps us a lot and does get us some good value, as well as just makes it feel better for us to get that card draw as well. And we're almost always at like 7 or less cards anyways, so that's strong. We also do have the Proud Saiyan. I saw this from the Star Deck 7. I'm like, this is immediately a Zamasu card. We're already playing so many copies of Gallic Gun. This is just an extra copy of it. That's defense only, but you were using Gallic Gun for defense most of the time anyways. So again, activate battle, you get plus 20k, and if you have 7 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw 1. So it just gets you out of a lot of attacks and lets you be really defensively oriented very early, which I think is very good. So that helps you out a lot. And then also the Galactic Donut, which came out of FB04. Activate main, draw 2 cards, then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it can't attack during your opponent's next turn. Generally, you do want to play this in like the Gohan deck because you can make it cost 1, but you get to pretty late game territory with the Zamasu if you're able to just kind of outgrind your opponent, or also even like, let's say you're at 5 energy and you want to play Zeno next turn, but you can't quite get there. Sometimes Galactic Donut is just like the better call for you. So draw 2 is really nice, especially if you just get like a bunch of energy into the late game, which this deck likes to do. It's also an Earthling card, which means your Videl can find it later. So let's say you have like 5 or 6 energy and you need to use it again. You can just attack with this Videl, get it back to your hand, get another draw 2, and then also get the stun on a card, which then you could like Zeno the next turn too. So that's, I think, really strong for this deck, and it just gets a lot of removal and a lot of it makes it very tough for your opponent to really do any meaningful damage in a lot of ways. And then our big bad boys, we've got the 5-drop Vegeta, we've got these new 6-drop Vegeta, as well as 2 copies of the Goku Black. So this deck really does have everything. It is 60 cards, which is quite a lot, but when you have so much cycle and so much kind of interaction with your opponent, you are able to really stall out the game into the late game, and then you're really able to take advantage of, one, that you're a 25k base leader on the backside. The fact that you get to heal once per turn is really great, and you have, again, so much removal, so much additional card draw, so much defense, that I can find this deck being very obnoxious in the later days too. So I like this build, and congratulations to their 3rd place finish. And then 4th place for Oceania, we do have Beerus. So this is Haydon's version of the deck. Beerus just doesn't really go away. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that Daima Goku was the best red leader going on into it, and it still might be, but Beerus still just gets so much good removal cards and so much pressure and power, and also benefits from the fact that we do have this new 6-drop Secret Rare Goku that just kind of breaks the game in a little bit. So this card on play until the end of your opponent's next turn, negate the next damage that you would take, and then also when attacking, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and get minus 20k power for the turn. So the fact that it's a board wipe, the fact that you can just play this on 6 and not be worried about your defense, it's just great. And it's a 40k body, so some decks have a little bit of a hard time interacting with this card. Your leader effect as the Beerus helps you get rid of a 30k, and this card's just amazing. So it really is kind of like, what deck do you think is going to be the best one to take advantage of that new Goku? And it's either this Beerus, the Jiren leader, or the Son Goku Daima, and I think all of them have their own merits for it, and they all get their big advantages for it too. So but Beerus was kind of like okay, I think, in FB03. It was really good in FB02, especially after the restrictions. It was probably one of the better decks. It was really good in the FB01 meta, and I think it's just going to be still around for this meta too. So we did appreciate in FB03 getting this Beerus 3-drop, which helped us get into our 5-drop, which is really nice. We also do have the new Frieza from FB04. So this is a super rare that says, on play, if your leader has Universe 7, which we do, in its special traits, until the end of your opponent's next turn, this card cannot be removed from your battle area by your opponent's skills and gets plus 20k power. Then also, when attacking, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and gets minus 10k for the turn. So that becomes a minus 20k. We get a 45k attacker that we're not really afraid that's going to be removed in a lot of matchups for the next turn. It will go back down to a 25k, which is a little bit rough, but we're still getting there, and it's just like a really strong card in a lot of ways. So I like this. It also has the combo power, which helps you out a lot. We do have like the Cathletic draw some cards later in the game, and we just get like a whole lot of value in a lot of ways. So I think Beerus is still in a good spot. There are some like times where not drawing on the front side really bites you in the butt, but I think most players have been able to overcome that and will continue to with this leader. And congratulations to Haydon for their 4th place with their Oceania finals. All right, next up, we've got the Son Goku GT, and we had 2 get top 8 for the finals in Latin America. We do have Thomas's versions, as Thomas's and Julian's version for it here, and they're pretty similar. I will say, like, Son Goku GT, of the decks that exist right now, they don't have a lot of diversity comparison, mostly because the card pool for black is pretty limiting compared to the other colors, since it's the newest one that's been added. But we kind of knew what the deck looked like in FB03, and we didn't get a whole lot of new cards. So I think the newest cards that we get are the Son Goku GT. Again, as mentioned before, this card is very good for protecting your cards later in the game. We also do have some new cards like the Glorio Daima. This card's really silly in a lot of ways too. The fact that it's a 2-drop 25k in some scenarios is really great. Like I can't understate like how difficult this is to be interacted with in like the mid to early game. And some decks just have to like bow down to how much pressure this card can give. So it's been really great in a lot of situations that I've been seeing in. And then also we do have like the Son Goku 10 GT, which we can still use in this deck. It does cost 2 energy, which is like a little bit expensive at times, but being able to use this to get rid of a 4 cost that we're afraid of interaction with later is very good. So that is, I think, helpful in this deck. And then worst case is like a 10k in your hand, so you're not even like really worried about what it does. So other than that, I think the deck is pretty understood for what it needs to do. We are playing a couple backup copies of Grade 8 Baby, since we do have like the 4-drop slot. Our best one is the Son Goku GT, but in case we miss that, sometimes we want to play this. We are able to play a 2 or less from our hand for free, which can be a Pan GT, it can be a Trunks GT, just a bunch of good cards from there, and does help some pressure and remove a 3-drop from our opponent's board that they played the previous turn, which can help us like even out the tempo too. So I think this deck is still very strong. I'm still a fan of Bardock as well. I think Bardock can also exist, but Son Goku GT has definitely been a little bit more favorite on the edge side, where a lot of people are just deciding to play this with the inclusion of some of the new support. So I think the deck is really great, and congratulations to both Tomas and Julian for their finishes there. And then now, next up in the top 8, we do have 2 of the Son Goku Mini Daima. So this is Tom's version from the Oceania finals, as well as Sebastian's version from the Latin American finals. And kind of as mentioned, I think like the Son Goku Mini is probably like the most open-ended version of this, like a red leader right now. You're going to have like be a little bit hard pressed to see 2 builds that are exactly the same. There are obviously a lot of cards that you will have some overlap with, but there's room for tech options, and I think that's really cool. So we've got Tom's build here, pretty similar to builds that I've been running as well. One of the cards that I've been really liking in this deck is the It's Over. The fact that this synergizes with our leader effect very well. So if we have if our board has a 25k and their board has a 30k, we can use our leader effect to kind of make ours a 30 and there's a 25, and then we can use It's Over to get that extra value, which is really, really nice. This also pairs very well with our 2-drop Son Goku Mini Daima from the set. You do have to take a card from your life when you play this, so do be careful of that. But if your opponent's at like 5 life with like or if you're at 5 life, your opponent left you at 5 and you have a wide board, they have a wide board when you go to 4 energy, you can play this Daima out, go from 4 or 5 to 4, then use It's Over and just pretty much wipe out their whole board, which is really strong in a lot of ways. So I think that helps the deck a lot. And then also like the Chi Mini, I've seen a couple people put this in. It's just like a card draw in a 10k, so you don't really mind it, even though you're likely not playing it very often. It's just like a good card to have in case you do have like the extra energy kind of floating with it. So there's some decision if you want to play like Khalifa or Hit for your like 2-drop Self Awakener, or if you even want to play one, which I think both are very strong in their own ways. 3-drop Vegeta, I've been kind of off and on if I like this card in my own builds. Sometimes it does do a lot of work in the mirror match, where you're able to just make it a 50k and your opponent's not going to be able to get rid of it in red unless they legitimately give it minus 50k, which is pretty tough to do. So that does help in a lot of matchups, so I might have to kind of reintroduce this in my own builds. And then kind of already mentioned as well, the 6-drop Goku, still very strong. We're going to see it again in Jiren a little bit later, but this deck obviously takes advantage of it, and we're running 3 to 4 copies. I think 2 to 4 is usually the numbers I would run in this guy as well. So last card I'll talk about, I really like this in the deck, the fact that you can make it a 30k and a draw 1, and just it works with your leader really well, and you don't have to kind of compromise with how inflexible this card can sometimes be. So that card draw does make a big difference, and I like the inclusion of it here too. So, but again, Daima I think is one of my favorite red decks right now. It's very strong, and I'm happy to see it get some tops in both these events too. So these are both Tom and Sebastian's build, and congratulations for their finish there. And then we've got one more Sebastian for us. This is Sebastian Cortes with their version of Aandroidd 17. This is probably one of the most consistent leaders from the inception of this game. Didn't see a lot of play in FB02, but FB01, but in FB02 we did get the Aandroidd 17 and 18. This rare is very good. Lets you really kind of ramp up and also get some pressure effectively. And it's just, if your opponent sees 2, sometimes you just feel like you lose. It's very, very strong in that regard. And we did get some good support for this deck still in this meta. So I think the biggest piece of support is this Nappa. On play, choose one, add it to 1 card from your life. Sorry, add 1 card from your life in rest mode. It's not an option. Or if you don't have a Vegeta battle card, this card, it can't attack for the turn. But generally, you're playing this on 3. You have a 30k body that also lets you help, self-awaken, but also puts the card in your energy. It's just very strong. And then your opponent's going to kind of have a bit of a hard time in some matchups actively removing this card. So it might even get another 30k attack on the next turn. So generally very strong in a deck that didn't really need it. Green doesn't really have a lot of sufficient self-awakening cards, so that doing kind of all three things you need at once, right? Is a 30k body, it helps you ramp and helps you get down to 4 life, because once you're at 6 life, you want to be once you're at 6 energy, you want to be awakened, so you have this 30k attack every turn, which again is very devastating. So I think this deck is really great in its own way. And then now that we have some more like consistency with it, some more like ways to get up to our 8 energy effectively, but I think that's really great. And then also we are playing like the Hercule engine, which I really like this inclusion for the deck too. So if you have 6 or more energy, add up to 2 cards with cost of 1 and less, and Earthling from their special traits from your drop to your hand. You're just able to use this to get a bunch of 10Ks, including itself, since it stays on the board. So you can get your Balma. You can also get like Roshin, the 1-drop Balma. Sometimes you just need like additional 5Ks to get out of attacks, and this Hercule really converts well into that. So I think that's a great way to kind of sustain into the late game. And you can tell we're going full value since we are playing the Earth Destroying Blow from the FB02 set as well. So being able to be at 25k, but also being able to draw a card, or even ramp if you're kind of stuck at 6 and you need to go to 8 the next turn for a Broly, you can just leave 2 energy open and then use this to ramp to that 7. So that's very strong for the deck. I think this deck is still in a good spot. Maybe a little bit less people on it since it's been pretty much the same since the release of this game, or at least into the release of FB02, but it's still very strong. Congratulations to Sebastian for their finish there. Next up, we've got Jiren. So this is Francisco's version of the deck, and we haven't really seen Jiren top a lot in the FB04 meta from what we've been seeing. I know a lot of people were pretty hyped with it, specifically again the 6-drop Goku is such a strong card, and it kind of reads like a really good card for Jiren. The fact that we're able to just be a 40k, give minus 20k to the board, as well as just like be more defensive, right? Jiren was consistently getting to 6, 7, 8 energy in a lot of their games, but they weren't really able to convert that extra energy into anything meaningful, right? The biggest card before this was like the 5-drop Goku and Rumshi, which like this card is fine, right? But like it's not like the end game for most decks, right? Being able to be a control deck, and this is our biggest body we can play, feels kind of bad. So I think the Goku does feel good. We also did get some new support of like the 6-drop Jiren and the 4-drop Topo. Most builds I think have tried them out and then walked away from them, my builds included. The 6-drop was just like a little bit too aggressive and not very good in their own situation, so I felt like that was a little bit tough to add to the deck, and then especially when Goku was just right there. And then 4-drop Topo was really only good if you played it like on curve or 4 or 5 energy, which I think from my experience most people aren't self-awakening you in their matchups. So it just means like you can like, oh sure, you could play Topo to draw 2, but then also you could just have played the 6-drops on Goku, right? Which you would almost always play this card instead. So I think that's like a little bit of the issue where like you have to be awakened, right? For the draw from Topo, and the fact that it's really hard for you to be awakened when you're this like slow control deck just means like there's just kind of like a mismatch for the priorities there. But I do think Jiren is in a good spot. I do think like Daima and Beerus are probably better red leaders as it is, but I do think Jiren still has a spot in this meta, and the playstyle is still really unique. I like the idea of a control deck like this where you're able to just prevent your opponent from really wanting to attack you late game because they don't want to give you that extra value. And I think that's really unique in its own way. So this is Francisco's build. Congratulations for their finish with Jiren. And then to wrap it up, my current favorite leader in this card game, it is the Majin Buu Evil leader, our single yellow deck for the representation for this weekend. And I do say this is a way different build from what I've been testing personally. This is a really, really close to the ground aggressive build that's kind of using some familiar friends from yellow. So the cards that I see immediately are the Ginyu. So on play, if you have 3 or more battle cards with Frieza Army and their special traits, switch up to 2 of your energy to active mode, then you can't play Ginyu for the turn. Then you can also see that we have like the Raccoon. So add up to 1 card from your life to your hand, then play up to 1 battle card with cost 2 or less, and Ginyu Force and their special trait from your hand. So being able to play, Ginyu or Raccoon into Ginyu get some self-awaken, and then you can likely get the 2 energy back if you have like a Banan, or you have like another Ginyu, or if you had like the 1-drop Sorbet. I think all of those are just really good adds to help you get to that spot. So I would have to actually like re-look at like a more aggressive low to the ground version of this build, but the Ginyu package is never like the worst one, right? Even if we're like not a Frieza army deck, I think this makes a lot of sense from like what we want to do like pressure wise. So some other things I'll say is that I am interested to see that we don't play like the 1-drop Frieza. I'd likely try to play that card a little bit because it is a 10k and we do get some good interaction with it. Also, like the Raccoon combo could just be good on like 4 energy. If we have everything set up as in like we have 1 Frieza army already out on the board, we can do the play where we can play Raccoon into Ginyu, get the 2 energy back to go back to 3, and then we can play Bibbidi into one of our Majin Buu's evils, and our kid, and then we can get like a bunch of bodies on the board. We get some extra card advantage from our draw 1 from Raccoons, taking a card from our life, but then also we can get a card draw from like Majin Buu Evil using their effect. There's just like a lot of great value, and being able to just vomit a lot of cards on the board for only 4 energy seems really, really tempting in a lot of ways. So I think this deck is really cool. There's some really interesting combos you get to do with it. The fact that I think a lot of people look at the backside of this leader and they kind of fixate on like being able to reset the leader to attack again, which is very good, but there's also like a lot of great extensions on your plays you can do because you're able to get that extra energy back too. So that comes up I think a lot more, and there's some great ways to convert that 1 energy into some really strong plays, and this deck is just really fun and a lot of fun. I've made some videos over it. I have my own builds, you can check them out. Don't be afraid that the Jiren matchup is like rough. You can get over it, and I don't know if this build can because we're really low to the ground and aggressive, but I think this deck has a lot of power, and I've been really, again, enjoying it. So big shout outs to Fabrizio for getting this into their top 16 and for getting it with a top 16 for this weekend in general. So that's going to be it though for me. This is a little bit of a longer video than I wanted, but we ended up getting there. If you guys want any of the deck lists, again, they're on my website, Eggman Events. Shouts to both TAC Games as well as Play Latin America for not only running events, but also helping getting the deck list available, including Nicholas Diaz as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this meta continues to develop as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.